So, welcome back. Charlie and I today we're going to be talking about the best way to send emails from Airtable. There's a few different options, and we're going to cover at a high level, maybe go into depth on one of them. But when we go into depth on one of them, it should be pretty applicable to the others. So, we'll be covering Airtable's native email, Action, Outlook, and Gmail because that's what Airtable has to offer. So, Charlie, if you want to take it away, we can jump right into the Airtable base where we were just going through Twilio automation, but now we'll be sending text messages with Twilio. Now we'll be talking about Gmail.
Yeah, so similar to Twilio, like email is a really fun one when you want to send things like order confirmations or status updates to clients or weekly digests to your boss, showing them like what tasks are past due or upcoming in the following week. So email is just like automation of email is a very low hanging fruit for a lot of organizations, and Airtable makes it really easy to set up these emails. So inside of the automation, you have a couple different options. You have Airtable's native send email step. So this is as simple as it gets. You can just plop in here either a fixed email, or you can pull in a list of variable emails from your trigger. You can bring in multiple variables, right? Like comma, and maybe there's another email that you had, like a personal email, and so it's sending to a string. You have more options as well. You can add CC, BCC. You can control the from name that appears and the reply to. So it can, like if someone wants to reply to this automated email, you can control it and goes to our info app, even though we're sending it from something at airtable.com.
Yeah, I think that is a really important step if you are going to use the native one, specifically the from name, because otherwise it looks to me when I see those, I think they're like a Airtable automation, like a notification, maybe one failed because they
Mm-hmm.
say like sent from Airtable automations or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Here's where you can control the subject. Um, the message, there's some pretty nice like HTML guides here to make your emails look nice. I love to put hyperlinks, for instance, in
Mhm.
emails. But another thing that Airtable does really well when you're mapping out an email, like hello, let's plug in their contact name. So hello, that. Below, you can find the list of outstanding tasks. And you have you can either like plug in variables, as you know, but you can also create either a list or a grid. And a list is like when you want to list details about one thing. So maybe it's a car and you want to list the make, model, and year, but Airtable like already makes it look nice. The formatting looks nice with how they do it. So if I click this one and I say maybe contact type tags and role and company email, you'll see how this looks. Let's pull in. Oh, I have to put in some.
So you can click generate a preview. I feel like this is also a sometimes common question. That's not, is that actually sending an email, Charlie, when you click generate a preview?
It's not. So if you change this to run as configured, now the test will actually send the email. But if you generate a preview and you click this, it won't actually send it. It'll just show you everything that you selected, the CC, the BCC, the subject, what it would look like in the context of the record that's being pulled. And you can see how the list comes out. It like bolds the field name and that I've selected, and it inputs those values as like a list. Contrary to a list though, you have grid. And grid is cool when you want to show multiple records with their own. It's like a small table. So if I wanted to show, for instance, the jobs associated, actually, a list. It's only going to be a list of one record. So let's just put that again. I guess what I would want to do is really like find records. in a table, for instance, jobs. I'm not sure what it's going to pull up, but let's just pull up 5 records based on a condition where name is not empty. So let's just pull in 5 records.
So you would probably want to be more, if you're actually building this, you'll be more specific with what you're finding. Like maybe either the tasks related to the person you triggered from, like the contact, or all of the tasks that are like pending. This, what Charlie's doing is just so we can get some good data in here to show what a grid looks like.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. In real life, like when I click this for a contact, for instance, the find record to Ben's point could go and say, go and find all the tasks where the status is incomplete and the contact associated is this person. And then I get that. And I can even put conditional logic to say only proceed with an email if you find anything. So like, I'll show you what that looks like. So we could say only where the find record length is greater than 0 do we want to even proceed with this, and that's when we will send this email. Interesting.
Job ID contains his blank.
That's right. So now that I've pulled in like a set of records, let me change this because this was the whole point. I'm going to reference now the find record step. And this is also something that people maybe don't know as well, is like, I might already have a variable here. I can click this drop down and change that variable to something else. I could also just blank it out and start from scratch and create a new variable. But I guess some people don't know that, or maybe it's not very obvious to everybody, that you can also just edit some one of these variables. When I go to the find record, and here I'm going to create now a grid, and I want to select the fields that I want, which will be the name, notes, and client. Now, important thing here is, how do I change the order of this? Like, so let's go and just generate what this looks like, right? Like, okay, cool, but what if I wanted the name to come first? I don't really like the clients being first on this list. These are the 5 outstanding tasks. So my understanding is that you'll go to the jobs table and you'll go to the main first view, and the way that these columns are sorted is what dictates the sorting in all the automations related to this. Unless I'm finding records in a view, I think that's what then changes it instead of based on condition. But let's just test this. So if I go back and I find again.
This is one of the weirdest rules that I feel like Airtable has, but it just works. Like what Charlie is saying, it just works.
Right. So now you see the name is now on the left side, clients are second. But let's say I find records, but instead of finding it based on that, I find it based on a view. We'll use this dev view, and I want currency to come first. So I'm going to do this based on a view, dev, test action, and here, you see how currency now comes there. If I go and edit, you see now it's based on the sorting of that view that I'm calling. So I'm finding random records, you go to the first, and even it's not going to be called grid view. I guess, what if I put dev now first? So now if dev becomes first, then even if I'm not finding based on this, I'm doing this based on this is not empty.
So usually what I would do there is I would usually call that first view like default view or something like that, and then try to convince everybody that uses the system that has base access to not move it from the first view.
Which is a very weird thing to tell people. Like, hey, never move that view on the top left, like, because you'll mess up a lot of notifications that are going out to your boss's boss.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a pretty peculiar, because there are benefits to using condition versus a view where you can lock it down.
I think we may have to save those for another video. If it's okay with you, Charlie, let's jump into the other two, either more on the Airtable native or into the other 2 emails.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good example of like what a email can look like, right? But if I, and just to show people, like say I want to put a big header, I'll put like 2 of those. And you see that just turn that into a larger. So
Mm.
just so people can see that it's very easy to change that.
And how would you
Um,
learn about like the different formatting options? Is there like,
yeah, right here in the and more is where Airtable references everything and shows examples, which is really nice. Yeah, I don't use it enough. I should use it more. I just use it for like hyperlinks mostly.
yep.
All right, so let's go over to the next one, which we'll use as Gmail. Gmail has, you'll see, pretty much the same configuration as send email, except for a few new things like from address, where if you authenticate your Gmail, so the first step you're going to do is authenticate your Gmail, which I'll do right now. It's just going to open up your Gmail. You confirm, yes, you want to give Airtable access, and now there it is. I would also recommend that you give them names because you might have multiple Gmails. So this will be like, and now that's very clear what that's connected to. But again, now if I had access to another email in the Gmail settings, I could change who it's coming from. I can send it on your behalf, for instance, if you gave me that authentication or access in the back end. So that's one new feature that Gmail offers. But other than that, pretty much everything's the same. We won't talk about attachments because that'll be its own 3-video series. But yeah, that's the Gmail step. Now, one thing about the send email is I think there are limitations depending on your plan that you won't see with Gmail. So like, I think you can't send more than 100 emails in one day, like to different email addresses. I guess you can send more than 100 if it's just one email address, but the variety of email addresses has to be less than 100. And
Yep.
that doesn't exist with Gmail. Although Gmail probably does have its own, like it's happened to me where emails can get flagged for spam if you're sending. You have to be careful because if you're using like Charlie at Optimize IS for an automation that's sending to your whole list of clients and you have thousands and you're doing that once a quarter, a good number of those are going to flag you, and that's going to be now your email address, Charlie at Optimize, and it's really hard to undo that and get that trust back from the email gods. So be careful to use the emails wisely. Maybe create a new alias email that's operations at, and give someone the ability to unsubscribe before they flag you, in an automated way.
Yep.
Yeah. Lastly, I'll go into the Microsoft. So Outlook email, and you'll see this looks very similar as well. It's pretty much the same as Gmail from address. And you can even like copy, I think, from one to the other. Let's see. No, it doesn't. This is an interesting thing, like why it messes up the format so much and creates this like copy of contact name, like the variable. Grid of records.
Yeah. Zapier does that really well, I think, from what I remember. Airtable
It
doesn't do
does.
that quite as well.
And there's probably some cool Zapier tricks to like pull in variables that you just created in Airtable that we could share in a different video.
Oh, that would be a good video.
Yeah.
So in the previous video, we talked about how to send text from Airtable. This one, we covered sending emails. There's a little bit more you may want to know about Outlook because Outlook has a special trigger that none of these other emails have. So we could potentially do a video on that. If you have any ideas for what you would want to know about maybe sending better formatted emails, maybe you want to have really what I call pretty emails, or you want to know how to do the same thing but in Zapier, leave a comment down below and let us know your feedback. If you want us to dive into any of these topics more, would love to hear what you want to know. So thank you, Charlie, for joining, and we'll see you in the next one.